Hi everyone. So today we're gonna look deeper into supply side policy in macroeconomics. For supply side policy, we have two different types, which are interventionist supply side policy and also market-based supply side policy. This is quite a recent article published by New Straits Times February this year. The Malaysian government plans to provide incentives to those involved in the agriculture industry to recognize their contribution to the nation. Allowance for fishermen and incentive for paddy farmers are increased, while farmers and breeders will start to receive incentive. Incentive. What is the definition for incentive? The word incentive, according to Cambridge English Dictionary, is money or price offered to make someone behave in a particular way. In this article, the government increased allowance for fishermen from 200 ringgit to 300 ringgit and gave incentive to paddy farmers up to 600 ringgit. They are planning to reward farmers and breeders as well. Farmers are those who are involved in planting and harvesting plants such as vegetables, fruits, and grains. Breeders are those who provide the society with meat and dairy products such as beef, chicken, eggs, and milk. These two workforce are main providers for the demand of food by our society. This is the interventionist supply side policy, where the government intervenes with the economy to directly increase its productivity. There are four categories of this policy, which are investment in human capital, investment in infrastructure, investment in new technology, and industrial policies. This incentive happened because the government wants to support farmers, breeders, fishermen, and paddy farmers because people do not get consistent income because the harvest of their products depend on season and climate. But yet, they play important role in the society as they provide the resources crucial for human needs. What the government hope to achieve from this policy? The receivers of the incentive can use their money for their healthcare, education, and well-being. This will eventually lead to better trained and healthy workers, and they can improve their productivity and efficiency, hence increasing their real output. This is for economic growth and to increase potential output. This can shift the supply curve to the right, as will be explained later. By providing with incentives, producers can increase the efficiency of their production, hence shifting the long-run aggregate supply curve to the right. Potential output is increased. However, this policy have weaknesses. The government incentive means there is an opportunity cost which might lead to budget deficit. Providing incentives for a sector would mean they have to reduce funding towards another sector, like infrastructure or investment in research and technological advancements. This would further cause misallocation of resources. Furthermore, in reality, the incentive may not be utilized to increase the productivity of workforce. Because the money is given to human beings instead straight to the production, the receivers may use the money to satisfy their wants, thus not contributing to the improvement of productivity. Apart from that, the reward may make the workers lazier and dependent on the incentive, thus reducing efficiency. This will cause the long-run aggregate supply curve to shift to the left as potential output is decreased. So now, let's move on to the market-based supply side policy. There are three different types of market-based supply side policies. The first one is policies encouraging competition. The second one is incentive-related policy. And the third one is labor market reforms. So now let's look deeper into privatization, which falls under policies encouraging competition. Let's have a look on an article on China's decision to partially privatize China Railway Corporation as part of its mixed ownership reforms. To cut it short, China aims to improve its state firms so they could better serve China's socialist system and facilitate the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, Xi wrote. This is due to how state enterprise provide only parts of the jobs and tax revenues in the country today. China's state rail company has also been experiencing a slow process of revitalization. As a method to increase and revitalize the state sector, the government has taken the action of inducing private sectors to participate in the restructuring of state-owned enterprise. They open up the private money, for instance, 51% of investment for Hangzhou-Taizhou railway line comes from private investor. Before we go any further, let's take a look at what privatization means. Privatization is a way to encourage competition among firms, which is one of the three categories in market-based supply-side policy. Privatization is the transfer of ownership of property or businesses from a government to a privately owned entity. It leads to a greater efficiency as it is thought to come from the greater importance private owners tend to place on profit maximization as compared to the government, which tends to be less concerned about profits. In this case, China is only partially privatizing its railway companies, which means that the form of privatization varies slightly in the extent to which they move ownership, finance, and accountability out to the public sector. In this case, the government may continue to finance but not to operate services, or it may continue to own but not to manage assets. Nonetheless, the effects are similar to total privatization. By privatizing the company partially, the amount of private money, which basically means fundings from private sectors, increase, which leads to the increase in incentive to further appeal to consumers, to increase profit. When profit is increased, wages is increased. This will increase the efficiency and increase the money to buy more resources. Private investors also become more interested in the performance of the rail company because they can gain more profit. Now let's move on to the theory of market-based supply-side policy. Market-based supply-side policy, in the form of privatization, was used to increase efficiency. By doing this, the firms have a profit motive, and at the same time, there will be more competition that is now allowed to market, which will bring down costs. In general, partial privatization of railway companies in China make markets more competitive, which in turn make them more efficient. Now let's move on to the effects to stakeholder. For the government, we will have lower unemployment rate, hence increasing the productivity of nation. For the firms, improved management and operation of the partially privatized firm. Also, the firms will have higher incentives to be as efficient as possible due to profit motive. Last but not least, for the consumers. Consumer satisfaction maximized because increase in efficiency leads to higher quality of railway. The mechanism of shifting the long-run aggregate supply curve is basically the same as incentive-related policies. By providing with more competition, producers can increase the efficiency of their production, hence shifting the long-run aggregate supply curve to the right. However, in reality, there is no guarantee that there will be a higher competition after partially privatizing an industry, so efficiency may stay the same. This is proven when China's private investors are wary about returns, which is why private investments grew only 3.1% in the first 11 months of the year before. Xi at SASAC also wrote mixed ownership reform, market-oriented hiring, and other efficiency-related reforms could not be accomplished easily. Other than policies that encourage competition, labor market reforms is also one of the market-based supply-side policies. These reforms are intended to make labor markets more flexible. Flexible here means more responsive to supply and demand. These reforms include abolishing minimum wage legislation, weakening the power of labor, trade unions, reducing unemployment benefits, and reducing job security. Lastly, is the incentive-related policies. These involve cutting various types of taxes, which are expected to change the incentive faced by taxpayers, whether firms or consumers. For example, lowering personal income taxes to increase the incentive to work, lowering taxes on capital gains and interest income, as well as lowering business taxes to increase the incentive to invest. That's all for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video.